my Savior. So lean into his presence, the one who holds the past and sees your future. He's right there holding you. So let your faith flow.
We did. It was just, yeah. So those shorts where we're not reading from a teleprompter, but we're just walking in nature and talking to the camera, those are receiving far more views than the other ones where we were sitting in the studio and they were really a lot more work went into them. But these, there's work, I guess, on our side because we're kind of learning what we have to say. But we don't have any cheats or anything. We just have to say it from the heart. And it comes across more authentically to people. And so our creative director is pushing us to do more and more of this type of thing. And it captures a greater audience. And that's really exciting to watch and to experience. Because now we got more people who have never watched our material before. And they're starting to engage with it in a proper way. I mean, in a very positive way. Let's put it that way. So, spiritual elevation. Let's see. I'm not seeing the screen up here. Jacob, sorry. That should say spiritual elevation, but for some reason the screen has changed on me. Our screen is a little bit different than yours. Okay. So, a phone-based life yields spiritual degradation, not just in adolescence, but in all of us. And so this is something that has been pinpointed. Now, how do you take a person who's an atheist and they're coming up with these kinds of findings? How do they come up with spiritual degradation, spiritual elevation? Isn't that a good question? And these scientists are atheists. I mean, this guy who's writing this here in, Jonathan Haidt from New York University, he says, I'm an atheist, but he says, I can't deny the science. So I'll explain that to you in a minute. I find it very intriguing that this is happening. Okay. So I'm not sure what's happening here. Okay, got that. There we go. Okay.
So the phone-based life affects people spiritually by blocking or counteracting 6 spiritual practices. And here are the 6 spiritual practices. Number 1 is shared sacredness. The second one, and we'll look at each of them in a little bit of detail. Yeah. The second one is embodiment, which is really being physically present and involved. The third one is stillness, silence, and focus. Number 4 is transcending the self. Number 5 is being slow to anger, quick to forgive. And the last one is finding awe in nature.
Okay. So, shared sacredness. To enable believers to share a collective experience. So God has marked off certain times, such as the Sabbath. This is in the literature, okay, written by atheists. Just try and picture how I'm reading this, and the guy says he's an atheist, and this is what he finds. We need a time to be collectively together, and he calls it the Sabbath. We need places such as churches, and we need objects such as the cross or the Bible or some sacred holy text.
I just want to say something about the Sabbath. I don't know if you remember this morning, Mark mentioned the pastor that has a big church of 7,000, his congregation, and how he only has certain apps on his computer and not on his phone. Mm-hmm. Well, this is a Christian pastor, but not a Seventh-day Adventist. But Sabbath he realized that Sabbath is so important, and so him and his family keep the Sabbath together.
From Friday night
From
to Saturday.
Friday to Saturday.
Even though his congregation worships on Sunday.
On Sunday.
Yeah.
So on a Saturday, they do things together. In the morning, they go hiking together. They put their phones off the whole family. Like they don't have their phones. They fast with this, from phones, from all technology on the Sabbath. They go out into nature. They do hiking. They do things together as a family, go visit other people, spend time together. And then on Sunday, he goes and preaches in his church.
Yeah. But
So he's recognized that
Yeah.
a Sabbath rest is critical.
And his writing is convincing a lot of other Christians to become Sabbath keepers. He has convinced his congregation to keep the Sabbath, even though they go to church on Sunday. Okay? So I think it's fascinating, because if you read his writings, he is it's some of the most beautiful writing on the Sabbath that I've ever read. And it's really beautiful. Okay? So,
Sorry, I interrupt.
in the virtual world, there is no consensual sacred structure. Okay? There is no structured time or space or objects. Everything is profane, a structureless enemy. Now, enemy is chaos. Enemy is normlessness. It's a breakdown of social norms. Its values are not there. Okay? So the expectations within society, they lack the social ethical standards in this individual or group that are online. So they're saying in a virtual world, you don't have this. Okay? Yeah.
Remember when we were staying in Lethbridge?
Yes.
We had students with us when we were in Lethbridge, when we first immigrated to Canada from South Africa, and we had students downstairs in the basement because we stayed very close to the university. And there was two boys, and they were playing video games. And they lost all track of time. They didn't even know what day it was. And there were empty pizza boxes and stuff.
Yeah, these guys were playing computer games so much over periods of days. But they had their own space downstairs. But downstairs where they were, I also had an office. But I would go down there on a Saturday morning. So I'd get up about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'd go and I'd start working on my sermon. And when I'd come down there, they would be there playing their game. And they would say, what time is it? And I would tell them, it's 4 o'clock. And they'd say, in the morning or the afternoon? And so I'd say, 4 o'clock in the morning. And they said, what day? And then I'd say, it's Saturday. And then they would say, Saturday? Oh! And they'd start cleaning up their pizza boxes and throwing them away. And maybe we should go to bed. It was crazy to me every time to see these guys. So they were so much in this other world. They were playing a game. It was something with cars. I think it was called Grand Theft Auto. And, you steal cars. I don't know if you know the game. Anyway, I've never watched the game, but I've heard people talk about it. And a Harvard professor stayed up one night playing Grand Theft Auto. And he wrote about it, how he woke up the next morning. He had to go and lecture at Harvard. And he saw a police car. In the game, you get extra points if you steal a police car. So he thought he was still in the game. He walked up to the police car, and he was ready to break the window. He saw a police officer inside, and then he saw his own reflection, and he woke up. He just kind of, whoa, this is real. And he was like, oh. And he realized he could not tell the difference between the real world and the virtual world. And that pretty much scared him into saying, hey, maybe this is not a good idea.
So embodiment, like I said, is being physically present and involved. Sacred experiences require a tangible or visible bodily expression, such as kneeling in prayer and singing, in-person communal events such as foot washing, communion, and breaking bread together like potlucks, like we've had wonderful experience of embodiment today, since this morning. So, and we're still enjoying that, right? And studying the word corporately. So,
what happened to my screen there? Okay. I lost something, but that's okay. I'll go past that.
So humans are embodied, and a phone-based life is not.
Yeah.
Screens lead us to forget that our physical bodies really do matter.
Oh, sorry, that's over top. Yeah. So René read what's on the screen, and that's really quite something. So we're talking about, I'm quoting the literature. I'm not quoting the Bible here. I'm quoting what the literature is telling us about kneeling in prayer, about foot washing, about communion, and singing, and all of these sacred practices. So stillness, silence, and focus. This is what Corrie ten Boom said. If the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. So what do those two experiences have in common? Badness and busyness. They both begin with a B, that's true. But they both cut us off from connection to God and connection to one another. Right? And connection to your own soul. Because when you're busy, you don't have time to rest the way that you need to, which was what we were talking about this morning in detail. Okay? So if we want to experience that rest, that silence, that stillness, if we want to develop that focus and sense of unity, of unified consciousness, then we must reduce this flow of stimulation into our eyes, into our ears. So
the phone-based life makes it difficult for people to be fully present with others when they are with others, and to sit silently with themselves when they are alone.
So the next one is transcending the self. Self-transcendence that's coming out of yourself, is among the central features of the spiritual experience. So love is not self-seeking. Would you agree with that? Okay.
A social media platform is almost, by definition, a place that is all about you. So you're investing, you create a profile, you're making sure that you keep up with the posts. It's all about you.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of time. You stand on the platform and post content to influence how others perceive you. So it really is all about you.
So it's a marketing of self is what's happening. And you're investing in it. That's the difference. And because you've invested in it, you've invested time, you've invested energy, and sometimes you've invested money into your profile, that makes you more likely to want to live in that zone or spend more time there. Once you invest in something, that's what gets your heart. Isn't that what Jesus said, right? Where your resources are is where your heart is. So being slow to anger and quick to forgive. So Jesus taught, and this is actually in the literature, they say, Jesus taught, judge not, that you be not judged. For with the judgment that you pronounce, you will be judged. And with the measure that you use, it will be measured to you. So social media trains us to judge quickly, publicly, lest you be judged for not judging whoever it is that we are all condemning today. So jump on the bandwagon and condemn. Don't forgive, or what will happen? Or your team will attack you as a traitor. I've heard people who are social media influencers but did not post something on a given day, and they lost their job. They were canceled online. Why? Because they weren't as influencers, they should be up on things. They should be putting down the people who other people say you should be putting down, right? They should be promoting what everyone else says you should be promoting. And when you're not, you're jumped on real quick.
It's also very easy to judge quickly and to judge publicly when you're sitting behind a screen and you're typing comments.
Yeah.
And you're judging. And you're not doing, because a lot of the times there's no way that you would do that face to face.
Yeah.
What you say on the keyboard behind a screen, a lot of us will not be able to say face to face. So it's very easy to judge publicly and to judge quickly.
I know of a politician here in Canada whose life was threatened online. But when the RCMP showed up at that guy's door, he was very passive, right? The guy who was threatening, he ended up in jail. So the things you put online can be used against you, and they will be, okay? So be careful about what you criticize and condemn. And it's very easy to be part of the mob mentality. And it happens very easily when you're hiding, apparently, where no one can see you. Well, people can see you. So finding awe in nature, and this is really important. So why is it, and we talked about that this morning, so why is it that atheists are now saying that we need spiritual elevation? In fact, to the point where they have atheist churches. This isn't made up. You can look it up online. They actually rent Christian churches, and they'll go in there during the week, and they will sing Christian hymns. Right? Even though they don't believe in God, they say. Because, here's why. They say that we have come to the place where we look back on evolution, and the survival of the fittest tells us that those who practice spiritual elevation were the ones who survived. So it's completely self-serving. It has nothing to do with God. In other words, if I want to survive, I have to do this practice, which I don't believe in. Isn't that weird? So they're saying the science tells us this works, our science, right? Because they believe in something that's complete fairy tale. But they say that that is telling us, the science all tells us that this is healthy, so do it. Okay? And they do. And it creates community. And hopefully they'll find God in all of that. I pray for that. Okay, so we're talking about healthy digital habits. We'll do that at the beginning this time, a little bit different than we did all the other ones. So don't text while you drive ever. Would you agree with that? Yes? Okay, it is dangerous. Very, very dangerous. But as we found out last night, who was it? Who told us last night? It was Mark, who said that he sits in his truck and he sees people on there, mostly females, 60% and 20% male, who are texting on their lap while they're driving down the highway. That's very, very dangerous. Okay? Don't ever do it. Number 2.
Number 2, feed your mind without scrolling, because what you feed your mind determines your appetite.
So what can you feed it with? Feed it with the Bible?
Or inspirational book.
Yeah.
Instead of scrolling through your news feed.
So the more creative you are with your time, the more you're gonna choose where you walk instead of wander. Okay? And when you're just scrolling along, you're just wandering.
While at church, leave your phone in the car or turn it off completely.
So consider taking strategic times in your life to digitally detox and decalibrate your priorities, or recalibrate, I should say. Recalibrate your priorities. That might mean stepping away from your phone for days at a time, or taking a digital fast each Sabbath. So it might also mean going on a phone fast for an entire week, or switching to an old flip phone without internet and social media distractions. And that's what that young man I told you about from Winnipeg, he was 17 years old and got himself a flip phone just based on that suggestion there, and it changed his life for the better.
Number 5, if in doubt regarding anything you read, watch, or listen to, consider Philippians 4:8 as a safe rule of guidance.
So if it is true or noble or right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, or praiseworthy, think on these things. So whatever you do, do it all to the glory of God. I think that's a good direction, right? So what are you consuming? And what is consuming you? What is consuming your time, your interests, your affections, your attention? That's what it's talking about. Do it all to the glory of God.
And lastly, number 7, trust God always. Cease striving and know that I am God.
Okay, so I want to kind of test you. What do we see as the 4 harms? What was the first one we did yesterday? Social deprivation. And then this morning we did attention fragmentation. Okay, and sleep deprivation. Oh, we did this morning during church. And then the last one is addiction. Okay, so we're going to talk about addictions now, and that's a big one.
Okay, so the release of dopamine feels good. So dopamine it's very short term, but it makes you, it's like a rush of
Feel good.
Hormones,
yeah.
So like when you eat a potato chip, you get a small hit of dopamine, which is why then you want the second one more than you want the first one. And when you look again, the whole bag is gone. You've eaten the whole bag of potato chips, right? That's because your brain's getting these dopamine hits. So it's very short, very temporal. Whereas serotonin lasts longer. It's also a feel-good hormone, but it lasts longer.
So the second potato chip you actually want more than you wanted the first one because of the dopamine. So the more you get that dopamine hit, you want more and more and more. So it's a more and more and more desire. So we register it in our consciousness, but it's not a passive reward that satisfies us and reduces our craving. So it is very active, and it's like, whoa, I just keeps pushing you to want more and more and more. So rather, dopamine circuits are centrally involved in wanting. As in, that felt great, I want more. Okay, that's the idea. So you want serotonin, you don't want dopamine. And dopamine is what happens when you are getting into a feedback loop of addiction.
So it's the same with slot machines. A win feels great, but it doesn't cause gambling addicts to take their earnings and go home satisfied. Because they're constantly putting in to see when they're going to get the next hit or the next win.
So this pleasure, feeling of pleasure, motivates you to keep going. So it's the same video games, it's the same social media, it's the same shopping sites, it's the same whatever other sites or apps that you use, whatever's routine for you, then you spend more time, more money than you should spend at that place.
And what you even intended to spend.
Yeah.
Right? Like I said, you finish the whole bag of potato chips, you'll sit at the slot machines and you'll play, and then you'll lose everything. You might win, but you're there for longer and you spend more than what you intended and that you wanted to spend. Even when you're shopping online, you just keep on adding to the cart. Because it's that dopamine hits and it feels so good and you want more.
If anyone you know is addicted in this area, it's a scary place. I baptized a man who was a gambling addict. He spent a lot of his family's money, unfortunately. And when I baptized him, he was broken. He was so broken. And I said to him, is it the desire to get rich. He says, that has nothing to do with it. And I said, really? He says, I will gamble as much money as I can get. He says, I'll keep doing it. And I said, what is it? He said, it's just the pleasure. The pleasure is so great that I can't resist it. And I said, but it's crippling you and your family. It's destroying your financial future. He says, I know. But blessings, though, was that he came to Jesus and he was set free from this. Set free from it. That is amazing. His wife was in tears, and they were both baptized together. So, I don't know if you can read what's on the screen. You can't because it went white instead of black. And so ours says, and the writing is in white, so we'll just read what it says there. It says, the neural basis of behavioral addictions to social media or video games involves dopamine, craving, compulsion, and the feeling that you are powerless to act on your conscious wishes. And guess what? That happens by design. By design. These creators of these apps, they use every trick in the book that a psychologist knows in their toolkit to try and get you deeply hooked into becoming a gambler or whatever it is, to stay there, not to leave their sites.
Tech companies know that there are invisible rules that govern what people do, and they tap into this psychology of mind control, like Mike just mentioned. And this is what dopamine and what releases dopamine and makes the users feel good. Also, you just don't know when you're going to get that dopamine that dopamine rush. Like when you play the slot machine, you don't know when you're going to win, right? But you keep on doing it because just in case. And then when you do, when it feels so good, and then you're like, okay, I want more. I'm going to continue doing this until I win again. Yeah. And this is how these designers have designed these apps for us to want more.
So these two young men that are on the screen where you got the Instagram logo there, this is Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger, and they both went to Stanford University. They studied under B.J. Fogg, who was they called him the millionaire maker. And he talks about behavioral design. And so Kevin and Mike, they had discovered, they were the co-founders of Instagram, and they discovered that if you want to shape the user's behavior, make sure that he gets hearts and likes right away. So these hearts, these likes, these responses, and then a feedback to the person who posted that. So feedback immediately, and so your phone buzzes, your phone, whatever, tells you that someone has responded to what you posted. And so they learned these things. And by the way, Mike Krieger and Kevin Systrom, Mike Krieger and Kevin Systrom left Instagram and sold it because they realized what they were doing to people. And they said, we can't live with ourselves anymore because we realize that we are really destroying people's lives. And so they gave it up. I don't know if it's ethical to sell something that you don't feel good about, but they did. Anyway, so Professor B.J. Fogg, as I said, he's called a millionaire maker, and he was the principal professor at Stanford who taught almost all of the people who started the first apps, especially the most successful apps. So B.J. Fogg talks about it this way. He says, what if in the future you had a profile of every single person on earth? Well, we do. And so this is what he would teach them way back then. This would be a psychological profile, figuring out how their personality works and the best ways to persuade them. And so it was on the basis of B.J. Fogg's teachings that we have all these apps and the algorithms that we have today. So he talks about, imagine a control room where a bunch of people control the thoughts and feelings of 1 billion people. Well, do you think that control room exists? It does. It actually exists. And it's not just human beings that are controlling it anymore, it's AI. And so it's automatic. So Google controls more than 50% of all notifications on all phones in the whole world. So as a Google engineer said, we shape more than 11 billion interruptions to people's lives every day. We shape them. So we shape those interruptions, and they're intentional. So you got people putting them together. Here's the thing. If you were to listen to these people when they talk, there's a program on Netflix called The Social Dilemma, where they talk about how these guys who are the insiders started realizing that when they were using their phones, the algorithms that they created were hooking them. You get it? So you're setting a trap, and you're getting caught in your own trap. And that's when they started to realize, wait, there's some ethical concerns here. We need to think about what we're doing. So, how does this happen?
So how do habit-forming products hook adolescents? Not just adolescents, but it hooks us too. And we mentioned this morning that our frontal lobes are fully developed. Adolescents are not. So this is what's happened. There's a cycle,
Yeah. So,
or a process.
okay. So here's the process. You start with a trigger, and then you go to an action, and then you got a variable reward, and then you got an investment, and then you go back to a trigger. Okay. So think about how that works.
So say there's a teenager, and they're trying to do an assignment on photosynthesis.
You remember
So
what
this-
photosynthesis is?
So this young girl is sitting, and she's trying to do an assignment on photosynthesis. But then she gets an external trigger, which would be a notification on her phone. So automatically that distracts her, and she looks at her phone because she's just posted something online, and she wants to see who commented about it. Right? So she leaves. So now the photosynthesis has been set aside, and she's going to this external trigger to see, was there a like? Was there someone that commented about my post? That trigger, the notification, leads her now to take action. So she's going to look and see how many likes there were, what the comment was, and then she's going to take action, and she's going to respond to that. And she's going to, if someone commented, she's going to comment too. And if no one commented, she'll continue scrolling to see if someone else, if she can comment on someone else's post. Right? So so the action is taken right away.
So let's talk about this. So you have an action to look for something. So let's make it simple. Say it's a rat in a cage. So a rat is in a cage, and what do they find out? The rat goes over to a bar, presses the bar, and the food comes out. They press the bar again, the food comes out. Every time they press the bar, the food comes out. Then they stop pressing the bar when they're not hungry. But if they press the bar and food comes out, and the next time they press the bar and nothing comes out, and then they press the bar again and nothing comes out, and they press the bar again and then something comes out, and it comes out variably. So it's called a variable reward. So it's not every time that they press the button that they get a reward. What does the rat do? It never stops pressing the button. It just keeps pressing. Because with a variable reward, you will press more than you, because it's not guaranteed that every time you press it, you're going to get something. And because it's not guaranteed, you will want to press more to see how many times you get fed. So that's called an addiction, where you keep pushing. And that variable reward causes this desire to push. You want more and more and more, because it doesn't come out every single time. Here's the thing. When you get that variable reward, now with your device, you don't just have a variable reward that's drawing you there, you also have an investment that's drawing you there. And that's the investment of your time, your energy, to put a picture in there, to put a comment in there, And every time you invest, now you have a feedback loop that says, I want to see how many times I can look on there, and it's variable reward. So sometimes you get a reward, and sometimes you get someone saying something negative. And that negative actually pushes you to push again to try and see something positive, or to try to post something that is going to attract more positive attention than negative attention. Does that make sense? So you get caught in that feedback loop, and then it creates another trigger. And sometimes you don't even need a notification. Sometimes you don't even need a buzzing phone. It's just now, because you're thinking about it and you're invested in it, that even though you're trying to concentrate on photosynthesis, you can't. Because your mind is, I wonder if my friends, and then you start checking your phone and you're looking through, did my phone's read? And then you say, I wonder about my friend. Let's check hers. Let's check his. And then you start checking all your friends. And by the time your evening is finished, you maybe studied for 10 minutes. Right? And so that's the problem with this.
So then the trigger, instead of it being external and becoming a notification, it becomes internal, like Mike said.
Yeah.
Right? Because you've invested so much. Because it takes time to create a post, to create a profile, especially if you're making videos or reels, now that they call them, on Instagram or Shorts. That takes a lot of time, putting energy and time into that, because you have to edit it. And so the trigger, instead of it becoming external, is now internal. And and then the loop starts over and over again. So you're in this feedback loop all the time.
Yeah.
And now you've, like Mike said, you've only done 10 minutes, if that, of your photosynthesis. And this feedback loop has taken hours of your time.
The hard part about this is this, that now we know that they intentionally engineered it this way, and we have documented proof that they had meetings on this, specifically with Facebook and Instagram and all of these that these executives intentionally targeted teens, the younger the better, to try and get them hooked in this feedback loop. And they were creating addicts, and they knew they were doing it, okay? They knew all the science behind it, and that's the scary bit about this. So these sites, they get to know what makes you tick in very specific ways. They learn what you look at, what excites you, what angers you, what enrages you, to the point where Facebook actually has been used to instigate political upheavals in some countries, okay? So they use these social media apps to sway politics, to sway crowds of people in a certain direction.
That's because they learn your specific triggers.
Yeah.
What specifically will distract you, or what triggers you.
So this means that they can drill into your attention. So whenever you are tempted to put your phone down, the site keeps drip feeding you the kind of material that it has learned from your past behavior and keeps you scrolling. So keep trying. So this is how they describe it. They say, if you thought of a little voodoo doll, they say the voodoo doll is kind of a replica of you. And this is the language they use. And so each person's profile is a voodoo doll of that person. So we will keep poking and prodding that voodoo doll until it reacts, until it wakes up, until it starts doing what we want it to do. And so that's their intention. And of course, they use their algorithms to try and get you to do that.
And we've already mentioned that older technologies like the printed page, billboards, or television can't target you in this way, because everyone sees the same advertisement. But social media knows exactly where to draw, because it learns your most distractible spots and targets them.
So Nicholas Kadaris, and he's an expert in addictions. Here's what he says.
Over 200 peer-reviewed studies point to screen time correlating to increased ADHD, screen addiction, increased aggression, depression, anxiety, and even psychosis.
Okay. So if you connect that with what we learned this morning, and that was on how to reset the child's brain, that she found that after Dr. Victoria Dunkley found that after 4 weeks off of screens, she could reduce symptoms of ADHD, autism, behavioral disorders, sleep deprivation. 80% of that would completely disappear after 4 weeks off of screens. So we're saying that this is very, very serious. But the brain can heal. Okay, the Bible says, and not all of that is on the screen, but we'll read it to you. One thing I have desired of the Lord, and this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. Isn't that beautiful? And gaze on the beauty of the Lord and seek him in his temple. This is the one thing. So desiring that is good. So this desire is important, but to desire in the wrong direction, of course, is fatal. So this was an article from the New York Times, and it is on a dark consensus about screens and kids begins to emerge in Silicon Valley. Here's what the article says. We'll just give you a few little bits from that article. It says, people who are closest to a thing are often the most weary of it.
Technologists know how phones really work, and many have decided they don't want their own children anywhere near them. Kristen Stetcher, a former social computing researcher married to a Facebook engineer, has said, if my kids do get it at all, they just want more.
Isn't that true?
The risk of addiction and stunted development are just too high.
So they don't want to give it to their children because they know that when they give it to them, what's that called? Dopamine. They just want more, just want more, just want more. Okay?
The risks for addictions are just too high.
The oldest use of the word addiction, isn't this interesting? Comes from the Roman Empire. If someone was sentenced in court for a crime, the judge might sentence them to 10 years of addiction. What does addiction mean in that case? Which simply meant 10 years of slavery. Isn't that interesting? So that word addiction was associated with slavery. So addiction, that's what it meant, was slavery.
So we're really in bondage.
In bondage. That's what it's talking
addicted.
about. So this is George Barna, and you know that he does lots of research, and he says media exposure has become the most widespread and serious addiction. This is Nicholas Kadaris again. I've worked with hundreds of heroin addicts, and what I can say is that it's easier to treat a heroin addict than a true screen addict.
That's frightening.
Okay? So we're talking very serious stuff. So this is Chris Anderson. He was a former editor of Wired, and he said, on a scale between candy and crack cocaine, screens are closer to crack cocaine. So we thought that we could control it. This is beyond our power to control. This is going straight to the pleasure centers of the brain. And so what Kadaris discovered was that his kids were going to school and they were saying, oh, it's improved education because we're using smart phones and smart boards and smart whatever, but it was making the kids not smart, right? And he realized this was addiction stuff. And he said, no, I'm going to send my kid to a phone-free school. But he says really almost impossible to undo.
And this is a former, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but a former senior executive at Facebook. He also resigned and left Facebook altogether. He said, you don't realize it, but you are being programmed.
Yeah. So another senior executive who worked for Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook. She said, I am convinced, listen to this, I am convinced that the devil lives in our phones and is wreaking havoc on our kids. Wait, what did she just say? Okay? So she said that she lives by the mantra that the last child in the class with a phone wins.
To get a phone.
To get a phone. Okay. So we talked about this earlier this morning, and what can families and parents of children parents and children do now? So what can we do now? One of the things that we talked about this morning, we can get them more active, we can get them busy, going outside, going out into nature. What are some other things that you would suggest that they could do? Any thoughts? Chores around the house.
Yeah.
Very good. What kind of chores? Yeah, help out around the house. Chores, dishes, walk the dog, right? Make some food, fold the laundry, all those kinds of things. Okay? We go beyond that. Could you give them other things to do? Yeah, weed the garden. Build a roof. Very good. What's that? Say it again.
Community work engagements.
I like that.
Yeah. So go help other people. Yeah.
So we were just in Washington, and there was a father there. He and his wife, they had taken a property, and they were living in a mobile home, but they saw their teenagers getting into games and stuff, and they said, no, let's build a house. And they gave the children, and these were just, becoming teenagers, they gave them the job of designing, working with the dad, and they built the house. They built the house. Do you think that took them a day?
No.
A year? Yeah, a number of years. And they continued working on that house. And working on that house. So the dad was so smart, he led them past all of those addictions through giving them hard things to do. Give them things to do that will keep them busy, that they can look back and they can say, I achieved that. That is a sense of accomplishment, and that is a sense of building up within them a sense of confidence and competence. Okay? Entrepreneurialism is very good. Yeah. So as I said, a friend of ours, Seth Dixon, he started his own little company down in the Lower Mainland. Where is he now? He's in Salmon Arm. And he started just renovating houses. Now he's doing major projects all over BC. He's hiring a lot of different guys. He's got 4 kids. His eldest is 12 years old, and his eldest already has his own little business running a greenhouse at the age of 12. So, you learn it from your parents, but if you want to, you can figure these things out. Just fall on your knees and ask God to help you. Yep. Yes. In your abilities. Yes.
That's so true, Corey. We need to let our children do hard things, because they are, like you said, way more capable than what we even realize and what we give them credit to. And it makes them independent and gives them a purpose and makes them feel useful instead of useless. Right? So let them do big projects. There's another thing that you can do is increase your teens' mobility. So let your teens master the transportation modes that make sense for them.
And where they live. Right. And also encourage them to get their driver's license. That's really important. I don't know about you, but when I hit 16, I had to get my driver's license. You had your car before you had a license. Yeah. 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 That's so good. Yeah. 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 But, yeah. Yep. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So our kids grew. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
True.
That's true. That's very much true. I don't. I when I was younger, I don't remember there even being seat belts. Yeah, there was no seat belts. And then eventually they came in, right? Eventually we'll be wearing helmets. Okay. Go ahead. Yeah. 80 miles an hour. It's so different. It was so different. Yeah, it was another
Very
world.
different.
Yeah. S- No. It was a totally different world, right? Yeah. So our kids grew up at Fountain View, and I said that I wanted them to learn how to drive because they're going to be doing that most of their life anyway, right? And you want them to be safe. So we bought them motorcycles. And one time I saw my daughter driving the car down the hill. She didn't have her license yet, but she was texting at the same time. Then I said, no, right? Because you can't be texting and driving at the same time. And she was going pretty fast on campus. But she was a good driver. And she's still a good driver today, both of them. But they learned that from making accidents on motorcycles, right? And so they had their little accidents, but they learn that way. I don't know if yes, go ahead. Ah, the side-by-side is a good one. Yeah, because you got that cage around you. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah. That's very good. Very
Yeah,
good.
side by side is a good way to learn.
There's a documentary called The Dawn Wall. Have you ever seen this? Anyway, the Dawn Wall is a big wall in Yosemite National Park. And they say it's unclimbable. Okay? Don't say something is unclimbable to someone who's a climber. And so there were guys who figured out how to climb the Dawn Wall. They spent 2 years mapping it out. 2 years. And this whole documentary was based on them. Well, the one guy, when he was a little kid, this one guy who climbed the Dawn Wall, when he was a little child, he couldn't walk. He was crawling still when he was 3 years old. Right? So his father said, I'm going to make this kid the strongest kid ever. And the father was a bodybuilder. So he pushed his kid and he said, well, what can I help him with? And how can I help him to get stronger? So he introduced him to climbing. And he learned how to climb. And he became one of the greatest climbers in the world. In fact, he was 16 years old and he was so good at climbing that they went to the World Championships of Climbing. And the day before, they said that they would let people from the public climb these walls. And whoever got to the top would get an award. Well, this kid was 16 years old. No one had ever heard of him. And he climbed right up to the top. He climbed past any other climber. So they said, well, we're going to make an entry level for you to come in with the professionals, the world-class professionals everyone knew about. This guy came in at 16 years old, and he beat all of them. And he went right up to the top. His father was so excited. He was holding his video camera, and he dropped it when his kid went past every other climber's spot that he had come past. And so what I'm saying is, here's a kid who could not walk until he was 3, and he became the world's #1 climber. right? So when you look at your kids and you say, how do I see them? If you use that model that Ellen White says for the law of life, something better, keep your mind open, keep your mind growing, keep your mind willing to expand in terms of your kids. Give them hard things to do, and they will rise to the occasion. You can pretty much learn anything now from YouTube. You can just go on YouTube and say, how do I do this? How do I change a tire? How do I fix an engine? And give it to them as a task and see if they can learn how to do it. Okay?
Also, encourage more and better off-base excursions with friends. Let your teen hang out at a third place, not home or school, but rather a place like the gym or the mall or the park or a pizza place. Basically, a place where they can be with their friends away from adult supervision.
Yeah.
Because this is where trust will come in, right? And they're like, oh, my parents trust me to be hanging out with our friends and trust our friends. Because if you don't do that, the only place they're going to socialize freely is online.
So rely on your teen at home, as you've said already, to run errands. They can cook, they can clean, they can ride their bicycles, they can use a transportation system, and when they turn 16, they can run errands using the car. And rely on your teen. Relying on your teen is not just a tool to instill work ethic, but it's also a way to ward off the growing feeling among Gen Z teens that their lives are useless. And that's really important, that they feel needed within the family. Okay.
Yeah, encourage them to find a part-time job. Because having a boss who is not a parent is a great experience.
Yeah.
Even when it's not a pleasant one. Even one-off gigs are good. So shoveling the neighbor's driveway or requires talking to an adult and negotiating a fee and completing the task. A lot of kids now have a hard time even holding a conversation. Even making that phone call just to inquire about something, to make a doctor's appointment or something like that. So rather encourage them. So that's why having a part-time job is good, because they have to talk, they have to negotiate a price, they have to speak and engage face-to-face in what it is that they're required to do.
So I'm going to flip. Yeah, go ahead. Yes. Yeah, volunteering is very good. So talk with your children about risks and listen to their thoughts. And I think this is really important, not to judge, but to have these open-ended conversations. The more you have open-ended conversations, you can get them to talk about things that maybe you even feel uncomfortable about. And so don't start with tough ones. Just start with easy things, right? Don't even talk about things online. Just, you can find online some open-ended questions, or just ask ChatGPT and for some open-ended questions to ask your teen. There are so many open-ended questions, and you can just ask those and start answering those. And when they feel comfortable talking to you, then they'll go into other areas that they should be talking to you about.
Perhaps you can ask your daughters about the posts that they're creating. Or you can speak to your sons about the game that they're playing. Tell us about this game. How does it work? What are you doing? Things like that. What badges are you earning? So that they don't feel judged, but you are becoming a part of their world, and you're curious and you want to know more about them.
Yes.
Because we all need attention. Kids want to be noticed and they want attention. So talk to them about those things so that they don't feel judged. Because once you feel judged, once our children feel judged and criticized, they are not going to open up. They're going to shut down. And you're going to push them further away and more into their rooms. So create that openness where you're asking about their posts, asking about the games that they're playing.
Yeah. and ask them, do you know anything about cyberbullying, right? They probably know a lot more than you realize. Don't ask them about things like sexting. I didn't even know what that was. And then my kids started telling me about it, and I was like, really? People do that? Yeah. Okay. So they'll tell you all kinds of stuff because it is happening. It's part of their world. And when you find these things out, you start getting a bit scared, but you want to be open. You want to listen. And you might be even honest about it and say, hey, this is kind of freaking me out here, but thank you that you're open about it. And then you're finding out what's going on. And you're trying to help them in any ways that you can. So learn how to use parental controls and content filters. I think this is important. Why? So we're focusing on blocking access to age-inappropriate sites and apps and specifying times when devices can and cannot be used. I think it's important as a parent that you have control of that kind of thing, especially when they start using their devices themselves. So some of the best ones that are out there, and we've explored what are the best ones and asked the experts. Apple has something called Screen Time. It is the best option for iOS holders. But this one called Custodio. Do any of you know Custodio, I think it's called? This is the one that's rated as the top one. You have to pay for it, but it really works. And one of the best for controlling your kids' devices and being able to, and I think it's available also on Apple. As well as Google. So your child's online use might be causing problems if
it interferes with their daily routines and commitments such as school, their work or their chores at home, their friendships or their extracurricular activities. So if they don't want to do any of these. It also is a problem if they experience strong cravings to check their device. So they constantly need to check their device. Or if they lie or use deceptive behavior to spend time online.
Or if they often choose social media over in-person social interactions. Or if it prevents them from getting at least 8 hours of quality sleep each night, which is really important, or if it prevents them from engaging in regular physical activity, and they keep using social media even when they express a desire to stop, okay? So sometimes you'll actually get kids who will speak it out loud and say, I can't control this. This is controlling me. And that's the hard thing. So considering taking a digital Sabbath, I think is important. We've talked about that. So consider taking a screen-free week every year, perhaps on a vacation in a beautiful natural setting. René and I were talking to our dentist, and she said that she had one of her patients who comes in, he's a businessman, and he had said to his grandchildren, I will take you up to the Northwest Territories this summer. We'll go on this excursion, and tell us about that.
Yeah, it was like an excursion. They were going to go canoeing and hiking and camping and, and so he had it all planned out. And I think the children were 10 years and 12 years. Mm-hmm. And so there was his grandchildren. And so he said, I'm going to take you on this trip and I'll pay for everything. But he said there's only one condition that you can come with me on this trip, and that is that there's no devices, no iPads, no phones or whatever. And both of the grandsons said, no.
We're not going.
We're not going with you.
So this is a trip that would cost him over $40,000. Mm-hmm. And the kids said no. So we're saying this is something that's really, I think maybe he should have just taken them and then dumped the iPads in the river or something. I'm just, but I'm that kind of guy, right? So. Ah, only one. Yeah. Yes,
Yes.
this is the problem. Yes. Right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, me neither. Yeah. Can anyone identify? Okay. Okay. There is nothing more calculated to energize the mind and strengthen the intellect than the study of the Word of God. Would you agree with that? It's so true. And so they're finding in reading, this is important, reader, come home. So they're saying that critical thinking, there are some benefits to reading a book, actually reading a book. And what are they? Critical thinking, creativity, personal reflection, empathy. Empathy is a big one. They find that more screen time that kids are having, the less their empathy. Okay? So they can't feel for other people. So it's love your neighbor as yourself. And that is what we need. So reading, just reading of any kind, is much better than looking at a screen.
And no other book is so potent to elevate the thoughts, to give vigor to the faculties, as the broad, ennobling truths of the Bible.
So we read this and shared this thought of the Bible, and this final one here. If God's word were studied, sorry it's so small, but on ours it's a larger screen, so it just got with a transfer of information onto your computer. It says, if God's word were studied as it should be, men would have a breadth of mind, a nobility of character, and a stability of purpose that is rarely seen in these times. Okay? So this is really important that we have this. So on the basis of those quotes, we had a young man who was invited by his friend, who was a Seventh-day Adventist boy, had invited this young man, and he was not Adventist, to come to the meetings. And this one night we were talking about the Bible and how powerful the Bible is for the mind. At the end of that meeting, this young man came right up to the front. He came right up to me, tall boy, and he said to me, he was crying. He said, "Can you get me a Bible?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can get you a Bible." I said, "Well, why do you need a Bible?" He says, "All that stuff you're talking about, that's me. I'm addicted to my device. I need a Bible." And he was convicted, just by his friend bringing him to church. That was very inspirational for me. So everyone should go on a fast from their devices, and I believe that is important. So what does that fast look like? There you go. The true spirit of fasting, this is from Counsels on Diet and Food. Fasting and prayer is the spirit that yields mind and heart and will to God. That's really what it's all about. It's not about denying yourself. It's really about giving your heart and your will and your mind to God. Okay.
So we're going to look at 7 ingredients to help you with your fast from technology. The first one is solitude. Jesus himself would often slip away to the wilderness and pray in seclusion. So come rest a while, be still and know that I am God.
So your fast needs to have a purpose. So why are you doing this? And decide for yourself, this is my purpose. This is reason why I'm unplugging. This is what I'm aiming for. Because if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. But if you aim at something specific, you need a definite aim. So if you want to be successful, you need to know what your purpose is in doing what you're doing. Number 3, engagement is the goal, not isolation. So engage in other things. Don't just engage in nothing.
Number 4, your fast needs definition. So what are you going to fast from? So you need to decide. It might be social media. It might be Netflix. So you need to decide what you're going to fast from and determine the parameters and the length and the time that you're going to fast.
And then notice your behavior. When you are fasting, what is it like? What are you? Pay attention to your desires. Pay attention to your emotions. Pay attention to your relationships. Okay? What's happening? Let the Lord speak to you so that you can see yourself and understand yourself. So this is an opportunity for the Lord to speak to you about yourself so that you can get to know who you really are.
And notice what your fast is telling you.
So who are you? Find your identity. We talked about this yesterday, right? Finding your identity. Who am I? This is really, really important because people are losing their identity being in this virtual world.
Yeah.
So where do I seek my identity from? And this is something that I've emphasized for years and years about young people because Ellen White says the first lesson the youth need to learn is who they are. And where do you find that out? In the home, in the church, and in the school of Christ, she says. You are a child of God. To know that, and to know that he loves you and he's pleased with you. And the last one is to feed your mind without scrolling. And that is to change what you're consuming and think about it creatively and ask. Read the Bible.
The actual Bible, not the Bible, on your phone, not a Bible app, but an actual Bible with the pages.
Right. And when
study it and
mark it and go for walks and let nature feed your mind as well, right? So do things that are healthy and feed yourself in terms of your spiritual well-being. So we've added a whole lot of content to you. We want to give you a chance to ask any questions that you have. Maybe you have some thoughts on your mind that you wanted to share with us, things that, are kind of, any kind of question.